everyone. A lot of you have been asking questions about Project One. So I thought it might be useful for you if I went over the project statement in a video. So here we are. Okay, I'd like to share my screen. And here's the screen share. All right. So the two projects that we take on in this course are outward reaching and in the real world. So our quizzes and our discussion groups are among ourselves and they're internal to the course, but the two projects are outward reaching. For the first project of the semester, we always hold an annual competition. And this competition challenges you to apply your skills and your creativity and take on a pressing issue that's related to diversity and design. The competition is designed for people from all majors or any combination of majors or disciplines. So for this year's competition, we're asking you to design a memorial that honors those from underrepresented populations who've been lost to COVID. The COVID pandemic has already claimed over 2.4 million deaths around the world. The calculation of loss, as you all know, goes beyond simple numbers. Each loss impacts family, friends, and communities. So what exactly is a memorial? Is it a gravestone? A building such as the Lincoln Memorial? A poem? Actually, it could be any of these things. A memorial is something that is established to remind people of a person, group of people, or event, and it is intended to keep memory alive. Popular forms of memorials include landmarks, objects, or works of art, but memorials can take on any form, as we see here, and we often see these kinds of memorials along roadsides because of tragic accidents. Memorials can be any kind of design, so they can be communication design, as we see here with these banners that are really pieces of graphic art. They can be product design, like we see here. This is a roadside memorial in which we're looking at a bicycle that's painted white and raised up off the ground. So it's an object or a product. It could be a piece of architecture, like we see here in the Museum of Peace. Beautiful memorial, by the way. If you're interested, take a look at that online. It could be an urban design, like we see here with commemorating 9/11 with the two beams of light going up into the sky in the middle of the city. Or it could be landscape design, like we see here, where we're memorializing the earthquake that happened in Japan. Or also they can be a combination of things like we see here, where we've got a bit of landscape, we've got graphics that are embedded into the surface, we also have benches, etc. They can also be in the physical world, but do not dismiss the possibility of them being in the virtual world as well. So in this case, we're looking at a memorial project that is an online memorial project. We have a number of goals for this competition, so let me move through those. So first, we want to research how the COVID-19 pandemic and other historic health crises, let's say the 1918 flu epidemic, have impacted various groups in the US. The polio epidemic might be another crisis that greatly influenced a number of people in the US. We want to raise awareness of how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted various groups. So some groups have been far more affected than other groups in the US, and I think it's important for us to take a look at what those groups are and why those groups have been impacted. We want to consider how people from each of the design professions we've studied thus far might take on the task of designing a memorial. So as I mentioned earlier, we've studied a number of the major design professions thus far. And we might think about how would a communication designer take on a memorial in a way that's different from an architect, for example. And then as part of our overall criteria or our goals for the course, we want to develop proposals for inclusive physical and or virtual environments. So the charge is simple, maybe more simple than it looks. Design a memorial that honors those from a specific underrepresented group who've been lost to COVID-19. So what's going to happen here, I'm going to go over some of the basics with you, and then I'll go into some of the other details. So the first thing is that each discussion group will be assigned a specific underrepresented population and a specific site. And you can find those in your discussion groups. I've set up a thread for the Project One COVID Memorial in your discussion groups. All of your instructors have already loaded up your assigned group and your assigned site. But here's an example. For example, Group 1 might be asked to design a memorial for older adults who died from COVID-19. The site for the memorial might be the Weinberg Retirement Community in Amherst, New York. Your discussion group instructor, as I just mentioned before, will let you know the underrepresented group for which you are designing, as well as your assigned site. Note that the group that you are honoring with your memorial is among the groups that we will be studying in part 2 of our course. So we're just finishing up part 1 this week, and we're now moving into part 2, where we start to look at the diversity issues and how the various design professions impact those diversity issues and how those diversity issues impact the various design professions. So we're going to be looking at the following issues: race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic status, age, physical ability, cognitive ability, and psychological ability, and then religion. So all of the groups that you've been assigned are in some way related to those topics that we're going to be taking on next. Okay, the next thing is that your proposal should engage one or more of the design professions we've studied in part 1 of this course. So you can take this on in more than one way if you'd like, but you at least need to be thinking about, all right, my proposal is more about communication design than it is about landscape design, or my proposal is about urban planning and design. So you need to think about how you're going to take this on. I'm going to give you an example here. So for example, imagine that you propose to display pairs of shoes to represent each of the older people who passed away from COVID-19 in the Western New York area. These shoes will be placed in a grid on the front lawn of the Weinberg Retirement Community. So in this case, your proposal involves products, and the products in this case are shoes that were owned by the people who passed away, and landscape design. So you've got a front lawn that you're using, and you have gridded out that front lawn to place these shoes as a way of honoring those older people who have died. I hope that makes sense to you. You may work on the competition independently or with another student in your discussion group. A number of you have already asked, oh, you know, I really want to work with this friend of mine. And that is, if your friend is from a different major than yours, well, by all means, go right ahead. but students of the same major cannot work together, and there are no exceptions. Now, why is this? Last year, when we had our competition, one of the, not one, but a number of the students talked about how they wished in this course that they could get to know some of the other people in the course who are not from their own major. They kind of wanted to expand their territories. And so I took that to heart, and I'm trying to figure out ways in which you can do that, given that we have 370 students. It's not always an easy task, but in this case, if you choose to work with somebody else from your discussion group who's not in your own major, you definitely may do that. And that way, you'll start to get to know someone new. It's always nice to expand your territory when it comes to learning about or getting to know people from other walks of life. There are no exceptions to this, so just keep that in mind. However, if you want to work alone, you absolutely may do that, and that's not a problem. The only issue here is the following. We grade someone who works alone the same as we would grade two people working on a project together. Why is that? The reason is that it usually takes just as much effort for two people to work on a project as it does for one, because there's coordinating that's involved. People have to talk about various, they have to agree on things. And so it just takes at least the same amount of effort. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about your submission. So your submission may include up to 5 images of your design proposal, accompanying text, and an entry form that contains a written description explaining your reasoning and process. So when you look in UB Learns and you look at Project 1 in the project assignments, you will see that there is an entry form that you need to fill out. And so there are a lot of questions on the entry form, and that is part of this proposal. So you can have 5 pages with 5 images. You might want to label some of those images, but you can't have more than 5 images and 5 pages. That's plenty. All right, so here is an example of the title page that you need to do. You'll see that we've got our In Our Shoes title, and then we have an image, one large image on the title page, and then we have a short description. So in this case, it says each pair of shoes on the lawn belongs to an older person from Western New York who died of COVID-19. These individuals are more than just statistics. They walk the earth among us. So that title page gives us a really good idea of what your project is all about. And so we're going to be using that title page in a number of ways, but that should get across your main idea. Okay. The deadline here is Monday, March 29th at 11:59 p.m. I didn't want to make it due the same day as everything else because that might be a little too much, but I thought that you probably can wrap it up by the next day. So at the end of March, we will take these in. We're not going to be accepting late submissions here. So, and if you want to submit early, by all means do so. Now let's talk about the requirements. These are a little tricky and a lot of you have been asking questions about this. So I'm going to go through this pretty thoroughly. So the first thing is that you need to upload your proposal on UB Learns. And your proposal will be in the form of a PDF, a single PDF. And that single PDF will include your entry, that would be the 5 pages or 5 images up to. You don't have to use 5 pages if you can say it in less. And the completed entry form. So you'll have one single PDF And that'll be your proposal plus the entry form. I'd like you to label your document in a specific way, and that would be P1, which stands for Project 1, and your last name with an underscore and then your last name. So Avino, for example, might be your last name. I know it's one of your names. So that would be the way that you would label it. And if you work with another person, both of you should submit the same entry into UB Learns. Now, where on UB Learns does this go? If you go into the project assignments area on the menu, and then you click on Project 1, you will see that that's where you can upload this. Excuse me. And if, so for example, let's say Avino and Jones are two students who work together. You both would upload P1 underscore Avino underscore Jones in both of your assignments so that we make sure that each of you get credit. So not one upload, two uploads if you're working with someone else. All right, so that's the first part. It's basically uploading into UB Learns a single PDF document. All right, second part is the discussion forum. You need to be able to communicate this with your other peers. So in this case, I would like you to save the first page of your proposal as a ping image. So just, right click on the title page and then save as and ping, so that this is an easily uploaded image. And we would like you to upload that title page into the discussion forum in the area that's labeled D+D COVID-19 Memorial Competition. That way, everyone in your group can see what your proposal is. And then all of you can begin to comment on those proposals. So we're asking you to share these with your peers. All right, so if you have more questions about that, by all means, email me and I'm happy to respond. Then we have a jury. And in this case, all of us on the teaching team, so there are 12 of us on the teaching team, and we will be looking at these. We will have some guests from the design professions, someone from communication design, someone from product design, someone from architecture, someone from urban planning and design, and someone from landscape, who will also be involved after we've gone through the first round of our selections. And then all of you will get a chance to do rating in your own discussion groups. So we're going to be looking at your entry forms and your projects. We are going to be looking for solid, compelling work that meets the competition criteria. All right. So, and remember that you're competing against 370 other people. So you want your idea to be something that stands out and is a unique way of thinking about honoring others. The awards, we have a first place award, a second place award, and honorable mentions. All of the students who win receive certificates. And then we also, because this is an out in the world competition, we have display venues for this. And usually we have an exhibit somewhere on the campus. And we also typically have an exhibit somewhere in Buffalo. But given that we're in COVID mode right now, we are doing something a little bit different. So this year, the top competition winners are going to be featured at the University of Buffalo Inclusive Excellence Summit, and that is held on April 8th. This is a really big summit that's university-wide. There are hundreds and hundreds of people, including the president and the provost, who attend this event. You may attend this event as well if you would like. And we will be, and the organizers of this summit or this conference have agreed that they will feature our competition winners at the conference this year. We also contacted UB Now, which is, as you probably get this every morning, where UB gives us our morning news about UB. So they've agreed to write an article about the competition and the winners. And so that also will be a place where this will be out in the public. And we are planning a website as well. So there are lots of ways that this is getting out into the world virtually. Now let's go into the evaluation criteria. You are going to be evaluated on thorough and thoughtful completion of the competition entry form. This is a really big deal. And it's worth 1/3 of the points that are allotted for this competition. So the reason that the entry form is such a big deal is that it's the way that we can evaluate how thoroughly you researched the relevant issues and how much you thought about what you designed. So did you just do this, like pull this together the night before? It'll show if you did that on the entry form. Are all the elements of the entry form thoughtfully completed? Have you cited any sources that you've used? This is the place where we get to see what kind of research you did. So what I would do if I were in your shoes would be to take a look at that entry form before you even start thinking about what you want to propose for your memorial. So that's the first thing, and it is very important. I can't overemphasize that. Then secondly, the clarity and the logic of the proposal. Does the proposal clearly communicate to its intended audience? Does it openly raise awareness of how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted a specific underrepresented group? If yes, how have you done that? Have you used the assigned site to enhance your idea? So in this particular case, what do I mean by that? I mean that each of the sites were specifically chosen because they offer opportunities that a generic site would not. So take advantage of that site in order to further your idea as much as you possibly can. And then are the images and the text that you've included in this relevant to the theme of your proposal? All right, we have more evaluation criteria. You will be evaluated on presentation. So are the images of high quality? If you're using images that are from the web, which you may do, you need to make sure that they are large so that the resolution is high enough. And you can do that by clicking on tools when you're searching for images, and then clicking on size, and then clicking on large, and that'll do it. Is the text well written? Are there errors? It's really easy to make errors on things like this. You need to have somebody else take a look at it and check it for grammar and spelling errors. And so just make sure that everything is clear, well written, and then you've taken care of all the grammar and spelling errors. You can also move this into Grammarly, or have it checked out at the writing lab as well if you want to go that way. And then creativity and innovation. Does the memorial demonstrate an innovative way of honoring your underrepresented group? What are you thinking about? This is the time for you to get those little gray cells spinning and think about what you might want to do. Think about your own discipline and think about how somebody from your discipline might take this on. I think that every major would have a different way of thinking about this. So a mathematics major might deal with this very differently than an artist or an engineer. Just think about how what you do might fit into this. And then how is your idea different from existing memorials? We're expecting that you're going to be searching out and taking a look at what's out there already. There are a lot of things that are on the web, and I've included a few things in a few examples of memorials on UB Learns for you as well. And then I will put this PowerPoint up as well, and there are a lot of images there that give you some examples. Are there any unexpected or surprising elements in your proposal? A surprise or an unexpected element is something that calls attention to what you're doing. So in that case, that might help you to move forward in the competition. There are up to 60 points that you can earn for this in terms of the grade, and they've all been displayed for you here. Then there are some considerations that we ask you to think about when you're doing this. The first is the thoughtful. So first of all is this. For those of you who do not have design expertise, do not be concerned. Please don't worry about this. Here's the reason. Over 75% of last year's competition winners, and usually the competition winners from other years, were students in majors other than art, architecture, and design. Isn't that amazing? But it's true. Everyone has the ability to be creative and innovative. You don't need to be a design major in order to make that claim. So in fact, students from engineering and nutrition won more awards last year than students from other majors. So just know that you are, all of your ideas are valid and you are not at a disadvantage. Okay, the next thing, conducting background research is an important part of your design proposal process. So how does your research inform the way that you design your memorial? Doing research shows, and we'll be able to tell most likely that you've done a little sleuthing before you actually start to develop a proposal. We're asking you to design a community memorial rather than a memorial for a specific individual. So we're not asking for a gravestone for one person. We're asking for a memorial for a group of people. So consequently, your memorial should be able to be visited by community members in your assigned group. For example, if you've designed a memorial honoring older people who passed away from COVID, older people living in the community should be able to visit the memorial either physically or virtually. So then also think about this as a critical social act. To that end, what is the message in the memorial and how are you communicating that message? And why is this message important? So if we think about the shoes, there's something very visceral about the idea of somebody's shoes being on the lawn, somebody's empty shoes. And most likely those shoes show us the age of the person. And so we can see that these were human beings, not just numbers. And they were older human beings who had lives and grandchildren and etc. And they were all lost. So I think that thinking about what the message is that you want to move forward is an important component of this. And then a few other final questions. Is your memorial temporary or permanent? It doesn't have to be some big building. In fact, I wouldn't recommend that. I don't know if it's appropriate for, it could work, but it's certainly not a necessary part of this competition. And then if it is temporary or it is permanent, what led to that decision? How does your proposal make a positive difference for people who are living or working near the site? In other words, how is the way that you've approached this proposal empowering other people? Then, are members of the community involved in the making of the memorial? If so, how? There have been many memorials. Let's say the image on the front of the project statement is the AIDS memorial, in which many people across the country made quilts or contributed to the making of quilts that honored and remembered those people who died from AIDS in the US. So in that case, lots of people were involved in the making. Do you have to involve members of the community in the making of this? Not necessarily, but if you have, describe how you have. Then everything we make has some sort of complexity. So what are some of the complexities of your memorial? So how could it be misinterpreted? If it could be misinterpreted, what would be the ways that it would be misinterpreted? Or what are some of the unintended consequences of your memorial if you started thinking about it from other points of view? So how do you answer this question? I think it's good to say, okay, how would X respond to this memorial? And so you might say, how would a person who is 3 years old respond to this memorial? How would a homeless person respond to this memorial? How would someone who's very wealthy respond to this memorial, et cetera, et cetera. So think about points of view from people who are very different from you. And that way you'll start to uncover some of the complexities. And then how do you want your memorial to impact your audience? You can't make that happen, but how do you hope it happens? Those are some of the things to think about. Then if you have any questions, there are a number of ways that questions, you can deal with the questions. And they are, first of all, you can go into the general discussion group on our course website, and there's a place for you to ask questions there. You can also ask questions in your discussion group, and you also can either contact me or contact your instructor, your discussion group instructor as well. So there are lots of places, all of your questions should be answered, and there are lots of ways of asking those questions. Then finally, for more information, you can check out the UB Learns website. I've added a few other things on there that should help you a little bit. Okay, that's it. Hang on, I've got to get a drink of coffee. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And sorry about that. And I'm hoping that this helped you out a little bit. If you, again, as I said before, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.